obsessive, send another desperate message. On your knees, I got you begging. I forgot I meant to mention it. You ain't nothing when you tryna be sick. You ain't nothing but my own ass bitch.
Mommies and daddies, welcome back to episode 7 of Roma's Man Cave, a safe place for men. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different because I am not filming in my studio. I'm here at my home. It's just after New Year's, so happy New Year's to everybody. And honestly, I am just kind of in like a bit of a low with my mental health and stuff, so I haven't really made it into my studio because I'm just trying to really just focus on myself and keeping myself happy and all that good stuff. So today I have a really interesting podcast for you though, because I was actually finally able to debate some feminists. So what I've done is when I was on TikTok, I was debating them. I've transcribed it over to audio for you guys, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to watch it in real life. The audio is not perfect. It's as if you were watching somebody on a phone. You can still hear it, but it won't be as crisp as it is right now with me talking to you. I really hope that that's okay. So even though the audio isn't as crisp and clear as it is right here, right now with me speaking to you, you can obviously still hear it. It's great conversations. And one of the feminists got so mad at me that her little feminist friends in the chat doxed my neighborhood and my oldest child, who is only 5. They doxed her real name. All because I was winning a debate about how women can be violent, and I made some great points about Andrew Tate that feminists are just really not ready to listen to right now, and that's fine. I won't keep you much longer. I'm gonna go. I have a doctor's appointment to go get some new medication, so hopefully I will be feeling better within the next couple days. And episode 9 will be back in my studio. I'm really excited for that one. But I really hope that you guys enjoy this podcast. I hope you enjoy listening to it. And not only do I debate some feminists, but I also give some pretty good advice to some young men, in my opinion. Don't mean to pat myself on the back or anything, and so I was very honored to be able to pull some of my logic and my statistics and my intelligence out of my hat for this one. But boy, did it make them mad. I've never seen anything like it. Without any further ado, I hope that you guys enjoy it. With that being said, Happy New Year, and let's get on to it.
Hello, beautiful.
Hello.
Hey. So, I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. So, I think that feminism in itself is definitely about equality, but just like everything else that we have in the world, we get this extreme groups. And I think that the extreme feminists have started to make a bad name for the movement, because every real feminist that I have talked to, like myself, has advocated for men's rights alongside ours, because we can't move forward as a society together unless we are talking about the societal problems of both sexes and working together to solve them. So I don't think that it's not about feminism not being about equality. I think that the extremist groups have made a bad name for it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like I feel like this isn't just a case of because you are 100% correct. The women who support, I consider myself a feminist, but I'm not like a fucking radical feminist. Like, of course, women
Exactly.
matter. Of course, women's rights are very different in like the East than they are here. Like, I'm not stupid to that, but I just think that it's no longer become a case of there's some bad apples. I think like the whole basket has become just broken down. Hello.
Hello. So my question is, and this is an honest question, I really do want to hear your opinion on this. Do you think conversations like this red pill, blue pill thing are doing anything to help build towards a better society?
I have no idea because I've never referred to the red pill in my life and I've never seen it. But I understand what you're saying. I would say typically like you're talking about oppression Olympics, right? Who has it worse, who's doing worse and whatnot, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
It lagged a little bit.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I think that there are people who will use feminism to just be misandrist and put themselves on a pedestal. And I think that there are people who will use men's rights to put men on a pedestal and put women down. But my problem is that there's no line in the sand where the people who are just merely talking about it, like myself, like I'm not doing anything wrong when I'm saying, hey, men's mental health matters. But yet every single one of my mental health videos got targeted on YouTube. It seems to be a problem. So there's like a huge difference between, fuck women and hey, women, we need to actually look at what we're doing here. But the thing is that like feminists won't allow that line to be drawn because any woman who does it is just like a pick me. So for right
Yeah.
now, I think the conversation needs to continue to happen because I hear that a lot where people are like, well, isn't that like making men victims or whatever? But like acknowledging a problem and pushing for acknowledgement, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I agree with you 100% on that. That, both sides should. I think a conversation should, could start steering in a way where we start trying to work together. And because I see a lot of conversations go like, especially here on TikTok, they'll be like, I did this because this person did this. And I was always told when I was growing up, two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly. But that's what I hear when I hear women making like these hateful comments towards men. It's all the time. Well, we can do this because men have oppressed us. We can say these awful things because men say misogynistic stuff about us. But it's like two wrongs don't make it right, especially with the body shaming. I see the most double standards when it comes to talking about men's purple-headed yogurt slingers. Like, God
I,
forbid if you make a comment about a girl having no eyebrows, but saying that a guy has to be over 6 foot.
yeah. And
Like
I
that.
agree with you. What a lot of people don't understand, I think, sometimes is that history has been, because it's always back to the history thing. They're like, well, historically, things have been this way. History has been easy for no one.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. I just have a question.
Yes.
Um, do you think that modern feminism is more about like giving more power to women, and then historical feminism is more about equality or giving women the right to vote in that? Or
Yeah. Yeah, see, back in the day when see, the thing is that modern women have convinced themselves that women's suffrage was about women being put up on a pedestal and not actually having to contribute anything. But in reality, what it was about was women being actually equal to men, working alongside men. Like I'm wearing pants right now. I would not be able to wear these pants if it weren't for the OG feminists that fucking marched and wore white for me. Like, that's just the reality. But nowadays, what women think feminism is putting men down and expecting men to still serve us the same way that they did back in the 50s and 60s. Women back then understood and appreciated men more because like they understood that the men were going out fighting wars, working long days, dying at work just to pay the bills and like provide for her and the kids. So there was an appreciation, whereas modern day feminism has convinced women that that's just a given. And so they've upped their standards for men, but lowered their standards for themselves, where they think that they don't have to do anything
yeah,
in return.
yeah, that's what
I
I
hope
was
that
thinking.
answers your
Yeah,
question.
thank you. That was it. That was it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Hello.
So I have a question actually.
Yeah.
What are ways we can hold women accountable in your personal opinion?
Personally, I honestly just think that this is one that like men just need to hand over to women. We always say to men, it's men's job to handle misogyny and men need to deal with their own toxic masculinity and all of this jazz. And it's like, okay, well then we need to take that tip as well because at the end of the day, society has manipulated women so much into believing that men are the enemy that and it doesn't matter if you say, hey, please don't say kill all men. I'm feeling suicidal right now. It hurts my mental health. They'll still tell you that you're being misogynistic. They'll still tell you that you're being dismissive to their trauma. There's nothing that you can say because this is the state of like the world today. So what it really is up to is like supporting the women who are calling out other women, because and like women have to start calling out women as well and supporting the women who do, and start like breaking out of this, oh, it's a pick me thing, because like that's so misogynistic. Like I don't formulate my thoughts just to get dick or just to get accepted for men. Like I can actually think for myself. So they just don't understand. They just hate men so much, and unfortunately there's like nothing you guys can do.
What made you want to do this? Like, what made you want to advocate for men? Because, in my personal opinion, I do, and this means no disrespect, you're a woman. Your voice will always be heard. Your feelings will always be heard. Your feelings will always be valid. You will always be believed regardless of any circumstance. Like you can make a false accusation towards me, and you will
Yeah.
be believed, and
Yeah.
have very little to no accountability. So what do you gain from this?
Well, at the end of the day, I've been asked this over and over for years, and I never had an answer because I never really knew. But over the last 2 years, I've really reconnected with people I grew up with. And they reminded me of the fact that, like, I've been talking about this stuff since I was a teenager. And, like, I know that I used to get into fights because, girls would put their hands on my guy friends, and my guy friends wouldn't hit women. So she was effectively, like, beating on them. And then, I'd get my licks back for him. Like, a lot of this stuff is just really ingrained into me. Like it's hard to really pinpoint where, like for example, my mom was really abusive towards me and my dad. So like my mom was a Becky, and my dad was working all the time making great money supporting my mom while she stayed at home and abused his children. Like it's so fucked up. You know what I mean? Like I'm the provider in my family, so I understand the financial stress. I understand the feelings of like inadequacy if you're stressed out about money, or just like I just understand, because at the end of the day, like I just listened, and I can't understand men like fully because I'm not a man. But if you listen, like you'll understand a lot. And so at the end of the day, the reason why I keep doing it is because like I just feel a fucking passion about it. Like sometimes I just I'm not a big crier, but sometimes I cry in frustration because I just don't understand how people think that men's rights is so radical. Like I have children, I have had friends that I've lost to suicide. My best friend I just lost over a year ago. Like people are just so brainwashed, and it's like if you saw someone on the street kicking a puppy, like not relating men to puppies, but like that would make you really mad, right? There's like certain things that your heart is susceptible to. Some people, it's elder abuse. If somebody hits an old person, they just feel something inside of them that just makes them like angry. That's passion. That's me. I'm just passionate about it. That's all. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So I want to ask you.
Yes.
And first, sorry for my mistakes in pronunciation. I'm from Slovakia.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay. So why do you think women had always like lover they were always under the man, like always?
What do I think about that?
Yeah.
Um, I think that's one way of looking at it. I think the reason why, if we're looking at like, obviously women not having the right to own their own home, not being able to open their own bank accounts, that's incredibly oppressive. But if we're looking at the whole, a woman stays at home and a man works, there's a transition of power there. And women hold soft power, especially in marriage, and it's just not really spoken about. So I guess I would need a little bit more of like a definition of what you're talking about being under a man, because I think that there's a lot more of a symbiotic relationship happening than what people want to think. That's just my opinion.
Okay. And one more question. Do you like what do you believe in spirituality and these things?
Like ghosts?
Yeah. and energies.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was a really big
Yeah.
believer until my best friend died last year. And him and I used to always joke around about if we ever died that we would like come visit each other. And it's been a year and I haven't seen anything yet. So I'm going to have to say no, not anymore.
Okay. But not matter if you believe, but do you think like women have mm, highest energy than men or something like that, or no
Like
power?
calmer, nurturing energy.
Yeah.
No, I think that women and boys, girls and boys are groomed, all the way down to like their toys. Boys are groomed to love very differently. And that's why you see a lot of older generational men not really knowing how to like emotionally attach with their children and do things like that because boys are groomed to, be tough, be the workers, and little girls were groomed with like dolls and to be caring and nurturing. I mean, nothing scientific has ever proven that just because you have a penis or a vagina that you are inherently set to act a certain way. It just doesn't exist. It's all about how society grooms boys and girls to be.
Oh, hi.
Hey,
So I just had a quick question. I was talking to some people in the comments and trying to figure out if I should ask because it's not quite related to the topic. But if you're not up to answering, totally okay. I was just curious to get your opinion on Andrew Tate.
sure. Um, Here's the thing. I disliked Andrew Tate before he came up because the video is gone now, but some people might remember it. He made a video talking about gypsies in Romania, which I am, and I didn't really appreciate being called dirty, systematically problematic. There was just a lot of stuff that wasn't okay with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't like him for personal racial issues. Personally, there was a lot of stuff that I thought that he just said for shits and giggles, but then there was lots of other stuff that personally I didn't really see as anything different from what like women are taught. For example, there was, he got banned because he referred to women being in relationships with women as like training a dog, but yet
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I listened to that one.
there's over 50, like I got more. There's like this, it expands. It's like a big picture. You just can't see it
Mm-hmm.
all because it's portrait, but like these are all about men being dogs, and I'm not saying it's right. It's clearly not right. Like women are not fucking dogs.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
you
we
know,
would agree that both are wrong.
yeah, but the thing is that like when he was also just talking about like going to the gym, working out, eating healthy, like I dead ass saw women responding to that saying that that was violent misogyny. Um, but yet it's not. So like the whole human trafficking stuff, personally, I'm not surprised. I'm from Romania, so I understand the politics. I understand Romania a lot more than people here in the West. And people here just seem to think that he was arrested by like beat cops. But he was pretty much arrested by like Romania's FBI. They're like their
Yeah.
own anti organized crime unit. So like in order for them to get all of those warrants and all of that stuff, like they have to go through a court process. And like women's rights in Romania is nothing like women's rights here. Like women have no rights, like none. Like they still have to depend on a husband or a father. So like to see successful men actually be arrested on behalf of like hurting women is just something we like just don't see for women. So,
Yeah, I was on a
but he
live
hasn't been in
earlier.
court yet. So
He hasn't been to court yet?
no, he was. A lot of people think that he was arrested for like an interrogation. He's already been interrogated and
Yeah.
released. This is his like actual arrest, as far as I know.
I was gonna say I was on a live earlier, and a gentleman joined, and he's from Romania, and he was telling everyone about how the system over there works and how the people who arrested him are kind of like the FBI over, like they're the FBI over there, uh,
Yes.
and
Well,
how like
Interpol got involved.
yeah. Well, I just was just curious on your opinion on him because he.
There's no bail. I don't know why people think, and you can get bailed out on sex trafficking charges, but he has not been bailed. So you guys have to understand that there's like people are sharing pictures of his arrest for like fucking like some money shit, fraud or some shit. Like you guys have to understand the amount of misinformation that's coming out of there. Like my family lives in Romania. They are there. Like I get my news sources from like Romanian news sources, all different types. So you just got to watch the fake news.
So you wouldn't say like you agree with his views
Well, no, I don't
on
think.
like
No, I
women.
think I think some of the stuff he says, it makes sense why men would agree to it, listen to it. Like some of the self care stuff, some of the like
Hmm.
valuing yourself as a man. But personally, I don't really understand why everybody is like so outraged at him. I do understand why they're outraged at him, but I don't understand how they're the same people who support Cardi B, Amy Schumer, Donna Hilton. Um, so it's like, again, if feminism is about equality, then how come Cardi B is still
Talking,
supported?
yeah, she's
Or
talking about like robbing people after she drugs them and stuff.
or Amy Schumer, who goes on tour and talks about the multiple different times that she's raped men. She went and spoke at a female women's empowerment speech where she was asked to speak about um, courage and confidence. And she chose to share a story of how she raped a boy in college
Oh
and
my
then
god.
proceeded to body shame his like whiskey dick, the fact that he couldn't get it up. Obviously, because he was so drunk that, and I quote, he couldn't see straight. So this is like what women are doing.
Mhm.
Donna Hilton was asked to speak at the iconic Million Women's March. Like that's like a dream for every feminist to be able to go speak there. Millions of women march on the street on Washington D.C. Like on that strip or whatever. And Donna Hilton was convicted, charged, convicted, did her time for kidnapping a man, holding him ransom, torturing him, raping him with a metal pole, and then killing him. And she was chosen to speak as like women's hero, because I guess now she does like women's incarceration work or whatever. So if women are going to be upset at men's representation, I just feel like maybe we should clean up our own house before we like start sniffing other people's toilets.
No, I agree. Yeah.
But
Um, but yeah, I guess that's. I was just curious on your opinion. Because I feel like, um, uh, a lot of people think just because you're how do I say this?
a lot of people think I'm conservative. They think I'm right wing, but I'm not. I'm
Yeah, they
liberal.
think because you're um like anti-feminist that you're anti-women, I guess is what I would say, but
Mhm.
I don't think that's the case at all.
What people don't understand is like my YouTube community. Pardon me, I'm eating. I have like 1.2, 1.3 million. And I've polled my community over and over and over the years. And consistently, an overwhelming majority of my community is pro choice for women, LGBTQ inclusive, trans inclusive. Like, so a lot of people just assume that I'm conservative, but I'm not. Um, and it's just funny. But yeah, hello.
Hello. Nice to meet you, Chloe, and Happy New Year's. So I'm personally somebody who considers myself an intersectional feminist. Um, what is like your idea of what feminism is? Like, what's feminism to you?
To me, well, because I've I like to consider myself a feminist. I like to consider myself like an original feminist. And to me, it's about like breaking down the systems in society that are oppressing both men and women, whether that be social systems or political.
Great. So like we can both like, kind of agree that like feminism isn't just the fight for like women, but like women and men.
Yes.
Okay. So why do you believe feminism is not about equality?
Because like modern day,
Yeah.
because it's about the representation, right? So, for example, I'm a men's rights advocate. I have the largest community in the world on social media that has to do with men's rights, and I'm fully aware that there are many, many others in the men's rights community that are very toxic. Like they hate women, just very radical. And so I know that it's my job to call that out, to try to hold my community accountable. And if I'm not doing that, then I can't say anything about, oh well, there's this and then there's this. You know what I mean? My point is that when it comes to representation, feminists are just main feminism that we see on social media. Like they're not doing that. For example, over 150 prominent individuals and organizations that are attached to feminism signed their name in an open letter to Amber Heard months after, like months after she lost. I've never seen anybody bet on a losing horse after it lost the race, but it happened. And those are people like, big makeup companies, women, the woman who arranges the Million Women's March, like that's supposed to be my representation as a woman. And they openly signed their name in support of a bed shitter. So at the end of the day, until we start to see these big feminists actually calling this out and doing more to draw the line in the sand between like intersectional feminism and like turf feminism and radical feminism, then I have to say that feminism isn't about equality. It's not enough for me to be like, oh, well, there's good feminists and then there's bad feminists. I do talk about that a lot, but I still talk about the bad feminists more because as a woman, that's what I see as my representation. I don't see the intersectional feminism. I just don't. The largest feminist page on Instagram, at the beginning of COVID said that the only good thing about COVID was that it was killing men faster or some shit like that. So like that's my representation. So
I can understand maybe how like media portrays feminism. And I actually think that that's like a huge part of the patriarchy is to demonize feminism, and make it less accessible and like less visible and to demonize it in nature. Um,
right, because that does benefit men.
right.
Right.
And so I think that's like very common. We also see that like men make up the majority of CEOs, so they're a lot of the time in control of these things. We also see that men make up the majority of board executives, things of that nature. We see that men make up about 90% of all violent crime. So I think that like there is a huge issue on the men's side, and I think there's a huge issue on the women's side too. I think that there's a lot of internalized misogyny that both men and women have to work on. Even I myself, I'm personally someone who's pansexual, and it took me a very long time to come to terms with that. And it was due to a lot of my internalized misogyny that I had towards myself, thinking like, oh, you can't leave the house without your makeup on, you can't leave the house like this, or
Right.
wanting to do a sport and feeling like it's too masculine, or I may get made fun of because it's so masculine, and things of that nature, and trying to hide that part of my identity.
Right.
And I think it's so valid to call out the radical part of feminism, but I think the majority of feminists are truly working towards the idea of intersectional feminism. And I think a lot of feminists have now learned we have to work with men, because sadly, not really sadly, to be honest, I think it would be a terrible idea. Women don't get to just vote on women's issues, right? That would start a terrible thing where we would have segregated voting. I would think that would be awful, right? So we have to get men educated, and we have to have them change. We also see that like a lot of men, I really agree with the term of educate your sons so you don't have to protect your daughter. And I think that's like something that's very valid. And I think we see it with our new generation of boys. I think that, like for example, my nephew's 8 and he is a lot different than what I remember my brother being at that age. He's not as aggressive, not as violent, very calm, very kind of creative and more into
The
STEM skills.
definition of what masculinity is changing.
Right.
Yes.
So, what's your main issue with feminism today?
Well, I think a lot of what you said what you said, even though I understand where you're coming from, and obviously you're putting your point across very respectfully. I think a lot of my issues with feminism kind of lies in a lot of what you stated. For example, saying that we need to educate men more, that we need to what else did you say? Protect our sons to make our daughters safer. You said that, men are taking up the majority of CEOs and, in politics and stuff like that. But my issue with that is that men are also taking up the majority of the suicide rate, the homeless rate. They're falling behind in education. They take up 82% of the global homicide rate. It's really intense, actually. And so my question is, if challenging feminism or being anti-feminist helps the patriarchy, then what is being anti-man, what's the inverse of that, right?
I think we can definitely look towards egalitarian societies where they practice this. And I think when we're talking about these types of things, it's not bad to point out that there's a specific problem here. And I don't know if you ever heard the term toxic masculinity. It was something that was termed by a child of a very militant father. His father, pushed very, very strict gender roles on him. And it was very harmful to him as a child. And he actually coined the term toxic masculinity. So it wasn't even feminists who did this; it was a men's rights activist movement that did this.
Right.
And it's actually a term that I will actually bring up this APA article. But it's a term that is used to describe the toxic traits and social structures we put towards men. And I think that the patriarchy equally harms men and women. I think that it's terrible that we've only set men to protect and provide. I think that leaves a lot of men with almost we rob them of nurturing skills. We don't allow them to express their feelings when it's needed.
Well, and it's anti-feminist inherently.
And we only accept things like emotions like anger, and we say that that's okay, but they're not allowed to express any other emotion, right? And that's why I say educate, because I think education is the thing that will fix this.
Right, but my issue is that all that stuff is show emotions and all that stuff that's just the bare minimum, right? It's the bare minimum because the issue in society, and I think what a lot of feminists just don't understand is that men aren't getting these ideologies from just anywhere, and it's not just their fathers that are perpetuating it, pardon me, because there are countless and countless and countless of men who grew up in single mother homes where the mom said, okay, you're the man of the house now. That's very patriarchal. I was just watching Disney Plus with my daughter 3 hours ago, watching The Lion Guard, which is the Lion King's children in some series. And there's a scene where
That's cool as fuck.
this girl is calling Simba's son stupid because he's a male, and and he says not all males are stupid, and she says the male who's flat on his back stuck in a thorn bush. There's this type of man hate and stuff is really indoctrinated. And I guess my question is when do we teach our girls so that we can also protect our boys? Because the domestic violence rate is 50-50, and the jail statistic that you cited is so old because for the last 30 years women in prison, especially in America, it's gone up 300%. So, and the majority of women in prison are in prison for domestic violence, and then it's robbery, and then it's murdering their children. So my question is if the answer is teach your sons to keep women safe, that kind of sounds to me like trying to treat the gender and not the problem. And if we're going to use that ideology, then does that mean that Like what do we say to women who are murdering their children? Because it's women who are murdering their kids. So like, when do we start teaching women to keep their kids safe? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense. We need to target the issue. But feminism focuses on treating men or boys as if they're like inherently a problem. But, masculinity isn't toxic. It's the ideologies in society that's pushed by both men and women. Like, we as women push it every time we say that the man needs to provide for us, he needs to make XYZ, he needs to be strong. Like, those are all very patriarchal things. So I just think that feminism pushes a lot of patriarchy more than they would like to admit, but then say that men need to solve the problem of patriarchy. Little Timmy down the street doesn't have anything to do with it. So,
Okay. That's a lot to respond to. Okay. I wrote some things down just so I remembered. So with the unaliving rate, the homicide rate, with that, it's actually men hurting other men. We see that there's a lot of male on male violence. And it's due to those patriarchal factors you were talking about, that idea of, stoicism and competitiveness, and these ideas that are pushed on
poverty.
men
It's
from a young
poverty.
age.
Men kill other men in higher rates of like
So
burglaries, and it's due to poverty, not.
I don't. I think that a large portion of crime is due to poverty, but it's also due. The reason why we see a
Well,
male
you
on
can you
male.
can you can
Hold
think it all day long, but
Can I?
it's factual.
I understand. Can I just finish real quick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, the homicide rate is males hurting other males, and I think it's due to that idea of violence and things of that nature. And the domestic violence rate is not 50-50.
Yes, it is.
From the doj.gov, it says right here that is 1 in 4 for women and 1 in 9 for men. I never stated a jail statistic also. I don't know where you got that from. I was talking about violent crime rates, and I said that men make about 90% of those, and I think you were talking about that maybe. In addition to that, toxic masculinity isn't saying that masculinity is toxic. There's an idea of healthy masculinity. There is, and you can have those ideals, right? Things like leadership and this idea of guiding your family, being strong, emotionally, and things of that nature. But that's a healthy way of your masculinity, right? And we also see toxic feminism, which I think it was something you're touching on a lot, which is when women perpetuate these awful patriarchal ideals. And that's a huge part of the issue, right? Women and men can both perpetuate the patriarchy, and it can both harm each other with it. And that's why I say it equally harms men and women.
So I guess my question to you is, when you start, I'm just pulling up the proper domestic violence statistics here. But while I'm doing that, my question, I guess, is like, I always hear that whenever I bring up the the homicide rate. Yeah, well, it's men doing it to other men. I guess my question is, number one, what's your point? And number two, why is that always brought up in some like dismissive, like, it's men's problem, they have to deal with it? Okay, well, again, women are killing their children at an extremely alarming rate, way more than fathers are, way more than random partners that these moms are dating are. It's just alarming. Female genital mutilation, the majority of little girls who have female genital mutilation done on them, it's done by female doctors and female nurses. So when addressing that problem, should we say, oh, but it's done by other women?
So the reason why I brought that up is because I'm saying this reason, one of the main reasons why, it's very multifactorial, but one of the main reasons why we see this is because of this idea of aggression and dominance that men have to portray in order to sustain their identity of masculinity or being a man, or somehow to make them more of a man if they win a fight or if they get the girl, right? And these ideas are very harmful to men. And that's why I brought it up. because I think it equally harms men. I think men are very much being harmed by the patriarchy. And it's not to discount the experience at all. I think men do go through a lot because of the patriarchy. And I think that's why we need to work together to bring it down. My stats are from 2019. Maybe that's why.
Oh, that's okay. You can't see this properly. Just give me a second.
Okay, I'll show mine too. We can try to see like where they're sourced, maybe.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
This is my source.
I'll
1 in
check it
9
in a
men,
second.
1 in 4 women.
Oh, is this the wrong one? God damn it. Yeah, that one's a longer conversation. You won't understand this one. This was you guys can read this while I do it, by the way. This was a woman who studied domestic violence as a career. And she had some pretty interesting notes. Here we go. Okay. I'm just grabbing a few more statistics here because I think that's another big problem too is like feminists using wrong statistics. And it's not your guys' fault. Like it was literally done
I
way
can show you
before
a
you
couple
even knew what
more.
feminism was. So first I'm going to show you this one. For anybody watching, if you want to know where to get unbiased, proper statistics, this is the NISVS. This is a CDC. This is taken directly from the CDC. A 12-month prevalence of physical violence victimization by intimate partner, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2015. So this is just when it was released, okay? So if we're noticing a pattern here where men are actually taking up more victims of domestic violence, then we can probably assume, okay, that it's more. Okay, yeah, I see that. Okay, wait, let me see. Nice. Okay, now let me show you something else. All right, so you're a big feminist, right? Yeah, I can see it. You're a big feminist, right? I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, if that's what you would like to say, I don't find it insulting.
Okay, no, I definitely was not. That's not an insult. I was just merely, I guess I was more asking where, like, the majority of your knowledge lies. Like, do you know who Dr. Murray Strauss is?
No, I don't.
Okay. Get mad. Okay. Dr. Murray Strauss, or sorry,
I'm
Professor
not
Murray
mad.
Strauss.
I promise I'm
He,
not mad.
okay. Professor Murray Strauss invented the very instrument that's used to measure domestic violence rates, okay? So he invented the very tool that statistic that you're reading that was used to make that statistic, okay? So he was an internationally renowned researcher of domestic violence, all right? So what he did is he summarized 200 plus studies that showed gender symmetry in perpetration of abuse. If you don't know what gender symmetry means, that means like 50-50. It means both genders equal perpetrations of
I
abuse.
understand.
I know, but there's 242 people who might not. Strauss also presented 7 methods that he's seen used to conceal and deny the evidence on gender symmetry. I'll show you that in a second because there's lots of tools that I'm not saying you because you're a feminist, but lots and lots of feminists use to conceal the truth. But there's another important guy. Professor Richard Gillis, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He authored America's first ever Systemic empirical investigation of family violence. He wrote 24 books and pioneered over 100 articles and papers, okay? Super, super, super respected. I have a good point here, okay? This is Sarah, okay? She as well. She studied 750 articles from 3 different databases and found that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 5 men reported perpetrating physical violence in an intimate partner relationship, okay? So this is self-reporting. Self-reporting, okay? So these women are not, they self-reported, all right?
Yeah,
These
that's how we collect
people,
our data.
right. Women are so what this found, okay, when he summarized all of these, he found that women are as physically aggressive as men or more in their relationships with their spouses or opposite sex partners. And we see this because lesbian relationships have the highest rate of domestic violence. So,
Can I see that statistic, please?
oh, yeah, sure. So, these 3 people, let me grab it for you. These 3 people, highly respected in their field in researching domestic violence, family violence, right? These people teamed up together. They did all of this research and they published a study that showed that women were just as likely, if not more, violent than men. And what happened, especially to the girl, because there was another one, Professor Suzanne, she ended up, every single one of them got butted out of the feminist community. Nobody called them anymore for press conferences, anything like that, all because they released that women are 100% just as likely, if not more, likely to commit violence than men. And my
I don't
issue
disagree
with,
with that.
hmm?
I don't disagree with that. I think they're correct in that.
Okay, so you do agree that the domestic violence rate is 50-50?
No, I agree that everyone has the same capacity to commit violence.
Okay, but if you don't believe that men are more violent than women, then the domestic violence rate wouldn't be 50-50.
I think it is more normalized for men to have violent acts than women, and I think I think it's something that is affected by social grooming. I don't think it has much to do with the capacity. I think everyone has the capacity to be just as violent as the person beside them.
Do you think that a woman slapping a man across the face on the street would get as much of a reaction as if a man slapped a woman? Because it is definitely the other way around. Like
I
women
mean,
100% are groomed
I
to
I was
just
gonna.
be violent.
Yeah, I don't think that men are groomed to be violent. I think it's just more normalized for men to be violent. And I think the only normalized emotion for men to feel is anger. I think we only allow men to feel anger because that is somehow how they validate the masculinity of them being a man. They show any other emotion like stress, maybe distraught, maybe if they're crying. Those things are all not respected.
Ooh, damn. I'm just pulling up the. Holy fuck. Are you in America or Canada? Because this is Canadian and this is fucked up. This is
I'm
showing that
American.
people in dating relationship who identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual are approximately twice as likely to, as heterosexual individuals, to report experiencing violence, especially in lesbian relationships where dating someone of the same sex, they were 18% more likely to experience domestic violence.
I'm sorry, but I live in America, so like our cultures are a little bit different.
How do you figure?
They just are like different cultures and different countries.
Yeah. But when we're
You
talking
guys
about
live
like
you guys live
social,
like much more like of a socialist lifestyle, where Americans live more of
everybody
a
says that. There's
capitalism.
nothing socialist about like even our
I
like
mean,
our
to be
healthcare isn't even socialist because we all pool our money together to pay
that's
for it. Like,
that's what socialism is.
okay, you know what? I know that you don't talk
Um,
like that, so you can sweeten your voice somewhere else. Anybody else? That's what it is. Shut the fuck up. I need a bong toke. Sorry. Like, you're not gonna hit me with that fake nice fucking That's what it is.
Shut the fuck up.
Also, I can't debate with somebody who just ignores every single one of my points. Like, did you notice that, like, she didn't respond to anything I had to say? Everything was like, yeah, but it affects men too, and like, yeah, like patriarchy, and like, I felt like I couldn't do sports, and that's because of misogyny. That's because of fucking prejudice. Are you stupid? You don't even know what. Oh man, I tried so hard to keep it together.
Hey, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Is that Amber Heard as your profile picture?
No, it's not.
Oh, it looks like Amber Heard.
No, that's the girl from Clueless. But I wanted to understand feminism is not about equality. So I just kind of want to understand, I did listen. I've been here for almost an hour. But you know, um to me it is about equality, but I kind of want to understand like where you're coming from entirely just in that like statement.
I think that there are a lot of feminists who want equality, but I don't think that feminism, the ideology, is. I don't think it's about equality anymore. And my content, if you go on my YouTube, I have so many videos talking about the difference between like what an actual feminist looks like, and what a radical feminist looks like. I talk about, women's issues, feminist issues that are really important and like, need to be spoken on. And like, I drew that very like straight line in the sand, because I believed in it and I believed in feminism in itself, I guess. But then when 150 organizations signed their name to Amber Heard, and like a lot of them were supposed to be like my biggest representation as women, that's when I realized that like it literally can't be about equality. It can't be about holding anybody accountable. And especially considering us as women, like we're allowed to get out of all of our boxes. We don't have to be caregivers and XYZ, but yet we still want a man to like provide for us, and like we haven't pulled men out of their box where they're only providers. And so it's like until feminism as a whole starts to represent itself in a better light, which is like these big feminists and like more feminists calling for more equal feminism, I can't say that it's about equality, because like the biggest feminist, like I said, the biggest feminist page on Instagram is like very man hating. It has like 3 million or something. There's some like huge feminist pages on Reddit that are just awful. Like, these organizations, these are like real people, so it's like that's my representation.
I see. No, I do understand. I think where you're coming from. Um, and it does make sense to me. I actually didn't know that like feminist groups signed for Amber Heard. This is my first time hearing that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's very interesting just because I consider myself a feminist, but I did not support Amber Heard based on the things that I know and the things
Yeah.
that came out to be true. Um,
Yeah.
so it's very interesting that they signed that, and I can understand, like, yeah, like how you view these things. I'll do the same. I think for me, like, feminism is about equality, but I also know that, like, there are, feminists that represent feminism in a bad light. Um,
Yeah.
yes, and then I also think that, like, feminism it tends to lean, more in favor for women because I think women have been oppressed for such a long time. So it's like um, giving them an extra hand. I don't know how to explain it. Like, kind of to uh, the way I would describe it, it's like if you had an empty cup and then you had like a half cup, like a half full cup, you have to pour more into the empty cup in order to bring it to like
Yeah, it's using privilege as a tool instead of a weapon. It's like how I use my privilege as a woman to speak on men's issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like I do understand you. Like it's just hard for me to um say certain things just because I can understand where you're coming from also. And I like the things that you said earlier was like it's feminists want like, amount to provide, but also like um they don't want like the gender roles that comes with like sorry, I don't want to like repeat
Being
what you
on
said,
being on
but
the opposite end of that.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
having to
I
take care of the home. Yes. Yes.
yes, and I feel like that puts too much pressure on men, and I do that like the suicide rate for men is on the rise because of that reason. Like men are feeling pressured because like they have to take care of the family, and they have all this oh
Oh, that scared the living daylights out of me. That is so cute. Thank you. I don't scared.
that's cute. uh but yeah, like I know I don't understand that. I think for me, I guess I want feminism to be about equality. And I think I'm coming from a good place. But I don't understand. I think there's a lot more to it than like what I understand. um so I guess I just have to do more research. Again, I didn't know that they signed for Amber Heard. To me also, I'm from a country where women are very much oppressed to this day,
Yeah.
so I view
Me too.
feminism as
I'm
a
from
way
Romania.
out.
Yeah.
Remain okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely understand, and I think that's what drives me so much and kind of pisses me off about feminism in the West is that um, they don't fucking understand. Like they don't
Yeah.
understand what oppression is. Like they just don't fucking get it. Like they don't
Yeah.
get it. And I think that that's like true oppression of women, and it just like really bothers me sometimes because like
Same.
I'm from a country where women are oppressed and
Hmm.
like beat on the street and not respected, aren't legally allowed to make nearly as much as men. Like that's actual feminism. Like there are actual concerns that need to be addressed. And so, like, I just believe that feminism owes feminists more because I never in my life have seen more women come together to support men than the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. Like, I saw
Yeah.
so many women that I can definitively say that most feminists don't support Amber Heard. It's like
Yeah.
the really radical ones, but it's like, why did these organizations think that everybody just wanted to suck her toes? Like
Yeah, no,
maybe
I
there
get
is more
that.
support
Like,
for her than I'm seeing, like why did they feel like that was all right? But
thank you for having me, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
yeah, you too. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
perspective. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Ooh, you so obsessive, send another desperate message on your knees. I got you begging, I forgot I meant to mention. You ain't nothing when you tryna be sick.